Hey, this is Connor from Omni. I'm going to walk you through a few of the ways that you can share context and metadata between dbt and Omni, which helps you keep definitions aligned and automates a lot of manual work. So I'll start us off in dbt here in our e-commerce schema. Here's the YAML file that we've built with a bunch of our metadata. Almost all of these fields have descriptions. And if I scroll down to the users model, if I find the country field here, you'll see that we have an additional parameter called accepted values. This is a way for dbt to test to make sure that all the values that end up in this field fall into one of the values in this list. And this is a parameter that we'll actually use in Omni too. So we have all this context and metadata in here in dbt. Let me show you how it gets pulled into Omni. I'm going to flip over, and here I'm in Omni's semantic layer, which is a code-based representation of the data that I'm pulling in from my database and curating for end users. I'm in this users view here, which is built off of that same dbt model I was just showing you. And you'll see that we're pulling in that same metadata. So for example, here we're pulling in this description from that dbt model. And then if I find that country field again, right here, here's that country field. You'll see we're pulling in the description. And then we're also pulling in that accepted values parameter. In Omni, it's all values, which has a very similar purpose of representing all the possible values that this column might take on. This is helpful, especially for AI, which I'll show you in a sec. But I wanted to point out that this process of pulling in metadata all happens automatically. So you can define this all in dbt, keep that as the source of truth, and then pull it into Omni. And it'll also stay up to date. So every time that you refresh your Omni schema, we'll also pull in this metadata. If you really want to dig into your dbt environment from Omni, you can even go into this dbt IDE that we have. So you can scan all the different files that you have in your instance. So for example, here's that YAML file that we were scrolling through earlier. So instead of having to switch between tools, if you just need to look up something really quick, you can do so in the dbt IDE. Okay, let me now show you how this gets surfaced to end users in Omni. All right, so this is an e-commerce dashboard showing our most recent orders. If I scroll down to a tile built from the users table, like this top customers tile down here, you'll see that the country description automatically gets pulled in from dbt, and the same thing for these other fields that we're pulling in from dbt. So this makes the time that you're spending actually writing those descriptions down in dbt useful for the people on the other side who are actually analyzing the data. And let me also show you how this gets used in our AI. So if I pop open our dashboard AI assistant down here, I can ask a question about our data. So I could just say, how many orders were placed in the US last week? Now, one thing to note is that US isn't actually represented in the data anywhere. It's USA. But since our AI uses our semantic layer, it can connect the dots for us. So US equals country. And then thanks to that all values parameter that we got from dbt, it can reason that by US, we're referring to the value USA, and then correctly filter the data. So that's what you're seeing here. It's filtering where country is equal to USA. So if you already have a robust dbt environment with lots of helpful metadata, Omni is a great way to reuse all of that context for a better BI experience and AI experience. Okay, last thing. I've shown you ways to pull context in from dbt to Omni, but you can also go the other way. So if you're exploring data in Omni and adding descriptions and AI context, you can also push it back to dbt to keep everything in sync. For example, here I have the same users table, but I've been iterating on it a bit and changing some of the descriptions. When I'm ready, I can navigate to this push to dbt button, and I can choose to sync my new descriptions as well as sync exposures, which creates a file showing all of the Omni content that depends on a given dbt model. When I hit create pull request here, that'll take me through my normal CI/CD process in GitHub. So if I scroll down here, you can see all the diffs. So the descriptions are changing from what I have in dbt currently. If I scroll all the way down, load that exposures file, you'll see a list of all the different pieces of content, links to them, and it even specifies the dependency from dbt. So altogether, it's pretty powerful using this two-way sync to keep dbt and Omni on the same page. And the best part is that most of this process is automated. So you're not having to spend a bunch of time transferring information manually. You just set up the integration once and then manage the flow of metadata and context as you like.